Hello and welcome to today's KDP University at Home with Elizabeth Hunter. Your host for today is Kamel Dupuy-Perez. He's from the author experience team here at Amazon KDP. His role is to engage with authors to capture their feedback, both good and bad, learn about their business, and ensure the author's voice is heard internally at Amazon. And he's been at Amazon for almost 3 years now, and prior to that, he's been in a similar role in video games for the previous 12 years. Elizabeth Hunter is a USA Today and international best-selling author of romance, contemporary fantasy, and paranormal mystery. Based in Central California, she travels extensively to write fantasy fiction exploring world mythologies, history, and the universal bonds of love, friendship, and family. She's published over 30 works of fiction and sold over 1 million books worldwide. She's the author of Love Stories on 7th and Main, the Elemental Legacy series, the Earring Chronicles, the Cambio Springs Mysteries, and other works of fiction. Let's all welcome Kamel and Elizabeth.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, Elizabeth. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
So let's start with a little background about yourself. When did you decide that being an author was your calling?
You know, I actually wasn't one of those people that was writing from the time I was a kid. I started writing fiction later in life, but I was a business writer for many years, and it was actually back in 2011, and I was laid off, as so many people were during the recession, and I started writing fiction online just for fun, and that was when I realized that, oh, I really enjoy this, because before that, of course, writing was work. It was employee manuals and, you know, safety programs and all sorts of the fun exciting business writing that we all have to read as employees, right? So I was doing that for work, but it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I started writing fiction for fun. And I was publishing online, and I went out with a friend of mine who we went out for breakfast, and she said, you know, I enjoy the stuff you were posting online more than my book that I got from the library.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, really? And that was kind of a wake-up call. And she was a big tech person, and she's actually the first one. Her name is Lydia. I want to shout out, hey Lydia. She is the first one who told me about KDP. Actually, she had just read an article about it, and she's like, you should check this out.
Wow, amazing. And how long ago was this?
That was I want to say that was in 2010.
Perfect.
I
Wow.
published my first book in 2011, and I had already I'd been planning it and doing all the pre-writing back in 2010. So I had this idea. It was a bigger work. I thought, you know, this is really this isn't just like a thing I want to post on my blog, but at the same time, I didn't even know how I would get started being a real writer. You know,
Right.
I had no experience in the publishing world. I had no exposure to it. It was kind of one of those things that other people did. So
Cool. Wow, and it's
so
like your 10th year anniversary doing this then.
yeah, it is. And yeah, I hit publish in October of 2011 on A Hidden Fire. That was my first book.
Wow. And what genre do you primarily write in? And why did you choose that?
I almost always, I have written some contemporary, but almost most of my work is fantasy of some kind. So contemporary fantasy or paranormal romance or paranormal mystery. And I've always been a fantasy reader from the time I was little. I loved Madeline L'Engle and C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. We were that nerdy family that like read Tolkien around the dinner table. Like that's how into fantasy we all were. So fantasy parents out there reading fantasy books to your kids, it seeps in. So that is absolutely my favorite thing to read and to write. And so almost all of my books have a fantasy element to them.
Nice. And who in your books would you say is your favorite character?
Um, I it's hard, right? Because it's like choosing a favorite kid, right? Um, I think I will give a little plug. I think I can give a little plug to my most recent book,
Mhm.
Dawn Caravan. Sorry, it's backwards. This is normally. I promise if you order the book, it doesn't come like this. It's right side. Uh, so Ben Vecchio is the lead character of the Elemental Legacy series, and my most recent book, Dawn Caravan, is the fourth book in that series, fourth novel in that series, and he's actually a character that I introduced in not A Hidden Fire, my first book, but in This Same Earth in the second book. So my very second book, he starts out and he's a young teenager there who's a side character, and so as that series has grown, he's grown as well. So it's almost like he's more mine than some of the other characters because I've watched him grow up over the past 10 years or so.
Mhm.
And so now he's the main character in my biggest series, and so he definitely has a special place in my heart.
Nice. Okay. And then, so you talked about like writing, self-publishing. What's something that you wish people understood more about both of these, about writing and about self-publishing?
You know, it's become much more widespread now. It when I started publishing, when I hit publish in 2011, my editor at the time, it was freelance editor, and she told me, she's like, I work with this small press. I think I could get you a deal. Um, you're ruining your career if you do this. No one's going to take you seriously. And so I think the one thing I really want and people to understand is you're not ruining your career.
Okay.
This is a career. This is a career. And it's not just the best. Everything's personal, right? So this is from my perspective, but for me, it was not just the best thing to do financially from a business perspective, but very much from a creative perspective as well. Because I have been able to write what I want. I have full creative control over how the book goes out into the world, how it's marketed, what covers I have, where I'm going to target my marketing, what my audience is. And I also know how I want to structure a series, and I don't have pressure from a publisher saying, I know you think this is 4 books, but we really think it's just 3. So can you squish book 2 and 3 together and do something like, it? And people do get that kind of pressure from publishers, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for not good reason. And self-publishing allows me as a writer, as a creator, to create the way that I want to. And to know that if I start something, I can finish it. I don't have to worry about that contract getting extended. I don't have to worry about a series getting cut off because the numbers aren't right. I can structure a book the way I want to. I can structure a series the way I want to.
Great. And then, so this whole experience of becoming self-published author, how would you like sum it up, like your story, your specific story?
It's um it's not a marathon, or it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. uh, when
Okay.
I started, and this kind of goes into the previous question as well, what do I wish people knew about self-publishing. This is not a kind of, I'm going to write this big book and it's going to hit and I'm going to be set for life. That's very rare that any writer has that experience. I want to be in this for the rest of my life. I love writing. I love doing what I do. I'm so fortunate. I am so lucky that I get to do this thing that I love so much, and I want to do it for the rest of my life. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to kind of pace yourself and recognize that everything ebbs and flows. Things grow, things shrink. You have to be flexible, and I think just yeah. So for my journey, it was something that I kind of initially thought would be like a side job. I thought, well, I'm doing this for fun anyway, and I might as well see if anyone wants to buy it and I can make some money off of it. And it very quickly turned into something that I did full time. And but you have to keep writing and you have to keep working. It's not just a big splash and you're done. It's a practice. It's a craft.
Amazing. And when you started, how long into it did it take you to realize that you could actually do this full time? Like, when did you quit your day job?
Well, I didn't have a day job, so that was an easy decision to make. I have joked sometimes that my mortgage is my muse, right? You know, I am a working writer, so this is my job. But I think I realized that I could actually be a full-time writer and have this not be like a fallback thing or I make money on the side doing this, but as my full-time income about 6 months after I published. And that was just purely watching the numbers and tracking them and kind of watching my sales grow over time. My first series spread very much word of mouth. And so I didn't have a big splash at the beginning. I sold a few copies and then I sold less the next month and then I sold more the next month. And then the second book came out and it got a little bigger. The third book came out, it got a little bit bigger. And then I just went from there. And I realized, wow, okay, if I keep writing and just keep publishing and keep working, then I can make a full-time income doing this. Oh, he's back.
Hi. Sorry about that. There was a little hiccup there.
No problem. No problem.
I can still hear. It's just my webcam for some reason just hiccuped.
Okay.
Anyway, so from that, what did it feel like the first time you reached that USA Today, the New York Times, or Amazon charts bestsellers? How did it feel like the first time you saw success?
So I hit the Amazon bestseller charts almost a year, just about a year after I hit publish the first time. So it all seems like it happened very quickly, keeping in mind I had books kind of written and prepared. So I wrote, well, I didn't write, but I published 4 books within about a year, less than a year, actually, about 9 months. So I had my first 4 books out, and after I had gotten the 4th book out and it had done so well, I mean, I thought it was just amazing. I think I hit the top, that book went into the top 1,000 on the KDP list, and I was like mind blown. I was like, this is amazing. And I hadn't hit any of the bestseller charts, but it was in the it was in the top 1,000 overall, and I just thought, that is insane. This is amazing. I'm so happy. But I had a friend, so this is back in 2012, I had a friend who said, hey, you've got 4 books out. Now, why don't you try doing a free promotion? And so I did that with the first book, Hidden Fire. And just a side note to all the new writers out there, I don't recommend doing free promotions until you have a bit of a backlist that you can use that freebie to pull in sales on your other books. I know a lot of people just want to get their book out and get it read, but you know, you need to value your work. So I don't recommend doing free promotions right away. A little bit off topic there, but so I did a free promotion in it was sometime in the fall, can't remember exactly when, and I was actually at the laundromat because I had just moved into a new place and I couldn't afford a washer and dryer yet, but I had my own place, so I was doing well. And a friend of mine called me and she said, it was Nicole Chase, is another writer. Nicole called me and said, A Hidden Fire is #1 on the free chart in the Amazon store. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
What? You know, so I'm trying to like do my laundry at the same time, like talking to her, because there are like people glaring at me to get the machines. So I'm trying, and I'm like, are you serious? And that same, I want to say it was like either that day or the next day, this same Earth, the second book, was in the top 100 in the store. And that was the first time I hit a list. And then like the week after that, the third book was in the top 100. And the week after that, the fourth book was. And so there was a month that I had the #1 free book in the Amazon store, and the 3 follow-up books in that series were in the top 100. And that was just, it was life-changing. It was completely life-changing. And I could definitely afford to buy a washer and dryer after that.
Wow, that's amazing. I know how expensive those can be.
You know what? You know what? I buy the base model, Kamal. I'm a conservative girl. I buy the base model. I don't want it to have any fancy bells or whistles, and it never breaks.
You need to have like ringtones, and you don't need it to tweet.
I want the old-fashioned ones, man. Anything with electronics, I just know it's like it's gonna break eventually. I don't want to have to hire a computer programmer to come out and fix my washer and dryer.
Oh man. So you released a book this week, Dawn
Yes.
Caravan.
I did.
Can you talk about this book and its place in your Elemental Legacy novel series?
So this whole series is part of the greater Elemental, what I call the Elemental universe, and it started with my very first book, A Hidden Fire. So that was the Elemental Mystery series. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to structure a fictional world that I loved. So I got finished writing those first 4 books, and I was like, I'm not going to be that writer who keeps writing in the same series forever and ever and ever, and eventually people get sick of it and I'll get sick of it. I didn't want that. But I knew I wanted to keep writing in that fictional world. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do, and I was actually inspired by Anne Rice and her Vampire Chronicles. And so she had the Lestat, like the main Lestat series, and then she went off and wrote kind of spin-off stories in the same universe. So you're in the same universe, but you can pick up those books in different, like you could pick up a standalone book in that universe and not be lost. And so I wanted to create a fictional universe like that, my Elemental universe, where you could start with The Hidden Fire if you want to go back to the very beginning, or you could pick up Midnight Labyrinth, which is the first book in the Elemental Legacy series, and start there, and you won't feel lost. You'll get enough background. You'll be able to dive into this really complex fictional world. And if you enjoy it, you can go back, and if it's not your thing, cool. But I think it'll be your thing. If you like paranormal mystery, if you like vampire mythology, if you like world mythology, I draw a lot of world mythology from all over. And Dawn Caravan is set primarily in Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it involves a fantasy element of Romani culture. So I did a lot of research into writing kind of an offshoot of Romani history that involves vampires. So that is kind of what Dawn Caravan is about, and it's all about antiquities, finding lost antiquities. It's a little bit like if Indiana Jones had vampires in it.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Which would be cool. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. I'm a huge history fan. So for me, the research part is really enjoyable. The first set of books in the universe, the Elemental Mystery series, was all about lost books.
Mhm.
I worked for a year in the Special Collections and Archives Department at the University of Houston, and so I love and I hounded them for that job actually. Like
Mhm.
I called back every week and said, "Do you need a student assistant? Do you because that?" And I think they just eventually gave me a job to get rid of me. They're just like, "Okay, just," and I was literally vacuuming old books. Like I had this little hand vacuum and I would vacuum the mold off of old books and I was so happy. That's how big a book nerd I am. So when I wrote my first series, it was all about old books and finding lost manuscripts and book mysteries and things like that. And so this other series, the Elemental Legacy series, is all about finding lost art, finding stolen art, or is it stolen? I don't know. There's a little bit of there's some shady moral decisions in the series. It's like, are you really stealing if that person stole it from somebody else? It's questionable moral decisions. But
Right.
lots of fun, lots of kind of history and fun characters, and I think you'll take a trip. We can't travel too much right now, obviously. So if you want to take a trip around the world, it's a great series to check out because um, prior to this, I do make an effort to go to the places that I write about to do firsthand research. I was not able to go to Eastern Europe. I had a trip to Romania planned a couple of years ago that fell through, unfortunately.
Mm,
So I had to do research online, and I talked to a lot of great sources for this and read a lot of great books. So um, hopefully you will feel transported. That's the main thing. I want people to feel like they're taking a vacation in a book.
amazing. No vacations much needed right now for people.
Right?
This is great,
Yep.
and I like the book reference for vacuuming books and
Oh my gosh. It was, I told people what I did, and they're like, and you like this? And you like this job? I'm like, dude, I get to sneak away and look at like cuneiform tablets. And they're
it's
like,
amazing.
and you like this job? I'm like, yes. How do you not understand how amazing this is?
Wow.
So, big book nerd here. Very big book nerd.
So as a book nerd, as a successful author, you probably have a lot of experiences that you can help others with. What advice would you give to like a new and an aspiring author who's considering KDP?
I think you need to remember that the writing is a thing. I think a lot of times when I was starting out, because I was told it would ruin my career,
Mhm.
um, I I wasn't thinking so much about selling. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write what I wanted, and if somebody bought it, cool. And then eventually I got, oh wait, okay, I need to be a business person too. But I came at it from the perspective of I just focusing on my writing. And I think it's easy for writers now, having seen so many Kindle success stories, so many KDP success stories, so many people that have made amazing careers and works that have been published on KDP going on to get movie deals and just have huge cultural influence. I think it's easy to look at the marketing side now. Like
Mhm.
it's harder to focus on just the writing. But I really advise young writers, especially, well, new writers who are not always young. We have some awesome writers that
True.
start out later in life. So um, focus on the writing because the writing is still the thing. The writing is still needs to be the focus, and focus on what KDP allows you to do creatively, like what I was talking about earlier. You can structure your book, your series, um, your fictional universe the way you want to, because you don't have to get permission from a publisher or an editor. You can do what you want creatively. You can go there You know, whatever, if you feel like you're pushing genre boundaries or anything, you can go there. You know, if that's what you feel like you need to do creatively, you can do that. But focus on the writing first. Don't get caught up in the marketing stuff, really, because the absolute best advertisement for your last book is your next book.
That's good advice, actually. Yeah, it is. Give them something else to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So marketing.
Mhm.
What marketing tactic do you feel has been the most successful for you in reaching and engaging readers?
So at the beginning, I tried to present myself. It was the fake it till you make it attitude, right?
Oh,
Like I didn't know anything about book marketing, so I just kind of pretended that I was someone who knew about book marketing and did what I thought they would do. Um, which was at the time mostly emailing book bloggers. And I didn't do it blind. Like I went online and I looked at blogs that were that accepted independent authors, because a lot of them didn't. Back in 2011, 2012, a lot of the big book blogs just they wouldn't take any self-published work. So I made sure they accepted self-published work. I looked at what books they were reading and enjoying, and I followed their review submission guidelines. I put together what I thought was a very professional like PR package, which I look back now and I'm like, oh, it was not. But but I tried. I had the cover and the synopsis and some early reviews that I had gotten. I had a friend who worked with me who was an editor, that we traded editing on our respective works. I got a proofreader because I couldn't afford a full edit for that first book. But I traded editing, and then I had, Kamel, I think I had like $100 budget to put this book out.
wow.
So yeah. So I traded editing from someone that I had knew quite well, and I knew she was a harsh critic. So I'm like, okay, you edit this book for me and I'll edit yours. And I was a former English teacher, so I was pretty good self-editor. But I definitely recommend, like, if you have the budget, make sure you spend it on editing first. So I got some early reviews from that. I put out this little PR packet kind of, with the cover and the synopsis and all that. And I just emailed BookBlogger. I probably like 10 a day. And I got maybe one response back for every 10 or 15. And but that was what I did for marketing at the beginning. And of course, so persistence, a little bit like me calling the library every week saying, hey, remember
Yeah.
me? Yeah. So persistence. And then I started to just engage with readers online. Same thing, like I started a website. I started had a blog. I got a Facebook page. I did all those things that I thought professional authors ought to do before I was
Right.
really a professional author. Because at that point I had in my mind, it's like, if my books take off, then I want to already have all these things ready. And so I started following writers on Twitter who I admired and saw how they interacted with their readers. And so I put social media links in the back of all of my books so people could find me. I didn't start a newsletter right away, which I definitely recommend people do. A newsletter is a really powerful tool. But at the time, I wasn't thinking about that, but I was thinking about social media. I was thinking about getting people to my website so they could engage on my blog. So that was my early marketing. And it's all that stuff is free. I think that's really important to think about, because too many times people go into publishing and think, I have to do all this marketing for this book by myself and I don't have the budget for it. But there's a lot you can do that is free. Social media is free.
To just follow people, send them things, message them, slide into their DMs, as they say.
Be persistent, but be polite at the same time.
That's
Don't just
true.
like, don't,
Be
I
kind.
never, I only randomly emailed an author once and offered one of my, and like, I only emailed once. Like, and I was
Mhm.
like, if you want to read this, you can. And that was it. Like, I'm okay. Um, because of course I knew people were busy and nobody knew who I was. And so, but I really recommend at the beginning, don't focus on marketing. Just focus on the writing. The marketing needs to come after you have, I've always said, I think 3 books is kind of a magic number. I think when you have 3 books out, people look at your Amazon page, your author page and go, oh, okay. So this is a serious writer person. She's got 3 books out. He's got 3 books out. And if you're writing in a series, that's great. If you're writing standalones, that's great. But there's something about 3 books that just looks kind of substantial.
Hmm.
I've talked to a lot of writers and I asked them, I'm like, when do you feel like your books started picking up like word of mouth momentum? And they said, I think I had like 3 or 4 books out. And I've met so many people. It's like, oh, that 3rd book or that 4th book really, really hit. So I think there's just something about seeing a body of work that makes people take you more seriously.
It's true. Yeah. Seeing a little trilogy that you're committed to it.
Could be a trilogy, could be standalones too. Could be
That's
standalones.
true. So how do you market a book launch now? Like, if you mind walking us through your step-by-step process here.
So I am fortunate, and am lucky enough to have a PR company that I work with that can do a lot of that stuff. So I'm at the point in my career now where I do have an agent, I do have a PR company that I work with, but I didn't have those at the beginning. But now, yeah, I do absolutely, because I just realize it gets to be really overwhelming. I think it was Neil Gaiman who wrote once that he looked at his workload at a point in his career and he realized he was someone who answered emails for a living and wrote as a hobby instead of the other way around, right?
Yes.
So hopefully you will get to a point in your career where the emails become too much work, and then you can hire someone to help you with the emails. And if you get there, be grateful and thankful that you have reached that point, and don't be shy about hiring a public relations firm. So they help a lot with the outreach to publications and blogs and review sites and things like that. What I do personally is I have a wonderful community on my Facebook page now. I have a wonderful reader group that's kind of an offshoot of that. I have a blog. I still do a lot of those same things. I'm posting teasers on my blog. I'm dropping little things on Goodreads every now and then. I'm like, hey, this is where I am writing the book. This is kind of what to expect. And I almost always do pre-orders now. I definitely recommend writers do pre-orders, only, of course, if you know you can hit that deadline.
Very important. Yes.
Yeah, if you're new and you're starting out and you're not sure, I'm at the point now where I've actually published over 40 books. This is 41. And so I'm at the point now where like I have a really great developmental editor, I have a really great line editor, I have a really great proofreader. Like I have a team set up. So I can confidently say I'm going to finish the book at this point. I'm going to get it to my editor. I'm going to have it ready. And so I don't have to worry about hitting my deadlines. I'm there. If you're new and starting out, you might not be there. And so don't put additional pressure on yourself to do a pre-order unless you want to set it out like to a ridiculous time period that like you're absolutely going to. What is KDP though? I think it's only, is it 6 months? You can
It's
do a pre-order?
1 year, I believe.
It's 1 year. Okay. So if you're confident you can get it done in a year and you want to set that deadline and do the pre-orders, go for it. But yeah, just make sure you're not putting additional pressure on yourself to finish a book. But once you're there, once you're a confident writer and you're very, sure that you can finish the book and meet that deadline, I definitely recommend doing pre-orders. They lead to a lot more sales overall. It might not look as impressive on release day. You might not get like that huge splash, but you will make overall more sales. I'm telling you that pretty confidently from my
Nice.
experience. So
Yes.
and it's a great marketing tactic, because you don't just have a Goodreads profile that you can send them to, you have actual buy links. And
That's true.
people like pre-orders. They like being, oh, okay, I might not have remembered the day of release, so I like having that one-click button, right? The
Yeah,
one-click button.
one click buy.
One-click, the one-click addiction is what
Yeah.
it is.
Oh man. And then, so what are the tools that a self-published author do you think they just can't live without?
Like I mentioned previously, an editor. You know, once you have a budget, all my profits from the first book went into editing for the second book. So an editor is a line editor is your absolute first investment, because again, a quality book is the best advertisement for your next book. So an editor, and there are so many good freelance editors out there. You will be able to find someone, and there's people working at all different budget levels too. So you can find, if you're a new writer, if you can afford a really experienced editor, awesome, go for it. It's worth the investment, absolutely. But you can also look for someone who's also starting out, and you can grow together. And if you can find someone that you can work with you over time, my editor now has been working with me for 5 or 6 years. And so she knows my writing so well. I'm a better writer because of her, and she is a better editor to me now than she was at the beginning. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
we've
you grow
grown together.
together.
Yeah, you grow together as a team, and that goes for a developmental editor as well. So I would say line editor is your very first priority. Spend your money there first. If you can afford a developmental editor, especially as you're growing. If you can't, I think you can get away with really good beta readers. Like, if you have friends or family who are willing to read your book for free and give you like really good honest feedback, and you have to be willing to take that criticism and learn from that, you can get away without a developmental editor. But again, once you're starting to make some money from your books, it's absolutely worth the investment. So your editing team, and then covers. A cover artist is really important. A lot of people want to design their own covers, or they think they have just like the most brilliant idea. Like they have in their mind. I know this because I think every writer is like this. Like, you have like a mental picture of what you want your cover to be. And sometimes that might be great, but sometimes it might not be great. And remember, you are a writer, you are not an artist. And there's so much going on in a book cover that you probably haven't thought about. There are some genre conventions, there are some signals to readers and buyers that you might not even think about, but a cover artist will. And so I really recommend finding a great cover artist. And again, there's so many at different price points. You can find new graphic artists that are just starting out that'll give you great deals. And there's pre-made covers sometimes that are fantastic and very budget friendly. They're a lot less money. So so those are my main things. First, line editor, then a developmental editor, and then definitely a cover artist as well.
Interesting.
Covers sell books.
Yeah, they do. They say don't judge a book by their cover, but
Oh,
like what people see.
yeah, don't believe anyone who says I never really pay attention to covers. Readers pay attention to covers, whether they realize it or not. It's absolutely like that is your face. That is the face of your book. So
Yep.
be willing to spend some money on that, or have a friend who's a really good graphic designer.
Yeah,
But I really
good
don't recommend
advice.
doing it yourself. I really don't. Because I think it's just like it's a distance thing. Like, you're too emotionally involved, you know, you need to
Yes.
be able to go to someone and they might be able to say like, okay, but you think you're writing this book, but from what you're telling me, it actually needs to have like this kind of, you know, it's not as it's more of a thriller than a mystery.
Mhm.
And I don't write either thrillers or mysteries, so I feel like disconnected enough to say this. Like, you might be thinking you're writing a mystery, and you tell a really good cover artist about it, and they're like, from what you're telling me, it sounds like a thriller, and so you need these markers on, you know, you need this kind of cover to sell this kind of book.
Right.
You want the inside to match the outside.
Yeah, I agree. And in some cases, that covers all a potential reader will ever see,
Yeah,
especially if they're browsing quickly through a website or through Goodreads or anything.
lot of time, yeah, a lot of times that's all they're going to see. There are a lot of people who don't read reviews, who don't even look at the synopsis. If they like a cover well enough, they will click on it.
Yeah, man, guilty of a lot of this stuff myself. Okay,
Oh yeah,
what?
me too, completely. Especially
Right.
especially some of those really gorgeous fantasy covers. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm just look at the colors.
Look at
I'm
that.
ordering it in hardback. Have you heard the author? No, but it's look at it. Look at it. So beautiful.
Oh man. So what would you say is the most surprising thing about self-publishing a book?
I think at the beginning, I thought it would be a lot more complicated than it would be. Um, I thought I would have to jump through a lot of hoops. I thought I would have to know a lot of technical stuff. And I have been so impressed with the KDP platform, how easy it is to how user friendly it is. Um, I've used other publishing platforms as well. KDP is a great one, and it has really grown too. I have seen, because I started publishing in 2011, I've seen the platform grow. I've seen the information and the data you get back grow, and so I think, yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised. I think a lot of people have this impression in their head that you have to be like a programmer or something, or you have
Mm,
to know a lot to publish through KDP. But if you have everything in line, if you have a well formatted book, and there are so many programs now that are very easy to use, um, to format your own books. If you have a well formatted book, if you have a good synopsis, if you have a good cover, it's not, you can do it yourself. You don't have to pay anyone to do it for you. You can do it yourself.
yeah, sure can. Um, okay, so we have our attendees, they have some questions that they would like to ask. I see there's a lot of them, so I probably won't be able to get to all of them, but I'll use the remaining time to go through some of these. So yeah, this is going to be fun. The first one is kind of interesting that I see here, because it kind of goes with the whole self-publishing thing. Do
hmm
you have a set schedule for yourself? Like, do you follow a 9 to 5, or is it just completely random as to how you write?
Um, that's a really good question. And you have to take this, anytime you ask a writer this, you have to kind of just take it as a your mileage may vary kind of thing, right? Because everyone is different. People who have day jobs just, you know, tend to write when they can. When I was looking for work and taking care of my son and I was super busy during the day, I wrote at night because that was when I had time. Now that I can write full time, I do have a schedule I try and keep to. I generally try and write in the mornings because I have like parenting and real life stuff to do. So I write when my son is in school. Uh, were I to write any time of the day, if I like lived by myself as a hermit
Mhm.
completely, I would become a vampire. I'm very much a night person. But I have like actual other people in my family, so I have taught myself to write during the day, and I do like I try and write between 4 and 5 hours a day. It's my job, and so I treat it like a job. Um, I have an office at home, and I go in my office and I work, and I try not to go on the internet because that is biggest time suck in the entire world.
Yes, it
Don't
is.
don't ever think you're going to go on Twitter for a little while and check things out before you start writing. Just don't fool yourself. It's not going to happen. You're going to get sucked in. You're going to end up reading about fights you had no idea who any of the people were, but now you're invested. No, don't do it. Don't
Oh
don't
man.
do it. You know I speak the truth. But so yeah, I definitely have hours that I work. I have, and that's what allows me to put out work regularly. That's what allows me to keep a pretty regular publishing schedule. This year, I normally put out, I would say on average, a book every 3 to 4 months. And a lot of people say that, like, oh my gosh, that's that's a really heavy publishing schedule. Some people say lightweight, and they put out books every month. I'm not those superhumans. But 3 to 4 months is a rigorous publishing schedule in traditional publishing. But when you're self-publishing, you can go at your own pace as long as you have an editing team and a cover artist who are also comfortable with that pace. And I treat my writing like a job because it is my job. And so it's butt and chair time. A lot of time it's just sitting your butt in the chair and getting the words out. And it is partly discipline, but also, especially if you're just starting out and you have a lot of other things going on, don't be too hard on yourself. A lot of people say you have to write every day. You don't have to write every day. If you can't write every day, then don't write every day. But do try and create some kind of routine for yourself if you're a routine person, because I think it leads to healthy habits and a good kind of work-life balance long term.
That's good advice there. And then this other question from another attendee kind of goes hand in hand with that. Do you use any book formatting software, or do you write by hand?
Oh, that's a good question. I do all of my pre-writing. I'm very much a planner. I am not a pantser, as they say. I do not write by the seat of my pants. That like gives me nervous shivers, like to even think about that. I'm very much a planner. I do all of my pre-writing. I do all of my outlining and my timelines and character sketches on like that. I do all that longhand, just in notebooks. I have so many notebooks. But when I get down to drafting a book, I write on my computer. Yeah, so I do use that. I use Scrivener and Vellum, which I think are two of the biggest. Yeah, but
Cool.
there's lots of programs out there. If you have a regular word processing program, you can write on that. You don't need anything special.
Let's see. What is the one thing that you know now that you wish you knew when you first published your first book?
Oh, I mean, I wish I had known how much I didn't know. But of course, there's some of that you only learn by doing. I'm trying to think. Let me think of something specific. I wish I knew how much I would grow as a person through my writing, and enjoyed it a little bit more. I think I wish I had kind of enjoyed the process. I was very focused on the work, and I think I didn't enjoy the process. It's easy, especially when you set hard publishing schedules for yourself, to get too involved in the business, and don't. I would just encourage you not to forget that you're doing this, I'm assuming, because you love writing. And so there was a period of time that I loved writing, but it very much became my work, and I think I lost a little bit of the joy in those first few stressful years. Try to see writing always as your place of refuge. Make writing your happy place, because then work doesn't feel like work. And so even when you're stressed out, even if you're trying to balance like work and life and family and all of that stuff, when you're trying to write a book, just try and remember that this is your fun place. This is your happy place. This is writing should always be a place of refuge. So don't allow the stress of publishing to make you forget the joy of writing and creating and all of that.
Nice, yeah. And kind of like the opposite of that, what would you say is the worst advice you've ever followed in your writing career?
There was some, I don't know, I'm not very good at following advice, to be honest. So I'm very stubborn. There was a period of time early on when there was a lot of advice from writers that older writers, or rather writers that have been writing longer than me, who told me to don't engage with readers, don't go on Goodreads, don't, like, that is for readers only. Don't insert yourself into reader space. And I think that is valid advice, but comes with the caveat of make yourself available. If people want to interact with you, allow them to interact with you as much as you're comfortable with. Some people are not comfortable on social media, and then do what is fun for you. But if you really hate being on Facebook, people will be able to tell that you hate being on Facebook. And so it will come off as non-genuine. But make yourself available. You don't have to, you can create boundaries, but make yourself available to readers. It's not like a reader versus writer. There shouldn't be an antagonism there. I am a writer, but I'm not an author without my readers. If I am just a writer, if I'm not looking for an audience, then I should just write in a journal. But once you put your book out into the world, you have to recognize that people are going to interact with your creative work, and they're bringing all of their own life experience and all of that with them, and just recognize that some people are going to love your book, some people are going to hate your work, and that's fine. It really is fine. You don't have to avoid all those places because you don't want to read a 1-star review. Trust me, I've read my 1-star reviews. I'm still living. My skin's a little thicker. I have not stopped writing.
Yes.
But I do, I'm pretty sure I have the distinction of having written the worst book in the world, because several people have told me that on Goodreads. So
probably, yeah.
that is, that's a distinction.
And
it's a title.
Definitely, yeah. I know I don't know. I sometimes dive into 1-star reviews just to see what people don't like.
For sure. And the thing that some people hate might be the thing that you love. It's like, oh my gosh, this is billed as a mystery, but there's way too much romance, and somebody said, oh, I like romance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, romance writers know that, the minute you get a 1-star review from someone saying way too much explicit sex, that is a 1-star review that is going to sell more books.
Oh man.
So I guess, don't follow the advice that there are reader spaces that you can't go online. Be respectful. I'm not saying you should insert yourself into reader groups that you haven't been invited to, but I'm saying make yourself available. Don't feel like there's an antagonism between readers and writers. There shouldn't be.
I think I have time for one more question, and it really goes into what you're talking about. What is the best way to get reviews?
I wish I knew a magic formula. I don't. The best advice I can give you is to write a really great book and to keep writing. Because the absolute best advertising in the entire world is word of mouth. And so you want to write a book that is so memorable and moves readers to the point where they tell their friend, oh my gosh, you have to read this book. That said, I think there are a few things you can do to encourage that. I think a lot of readers don't realize how important reviews are. And so you can put a little note at the end of your book that says, hey, it would be great, you know, positive or negative, it would be great if you left a review wherever you bought this book. You know, doesn't just be honest. You know, don't say only positive reviews. That's just
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not fair. People have a right to say what they want. But you know, you can encourage them. You know, it would be awesome if you enjoy this book. If you don't enjoy this book, it would be awesome if you let people know what you think wherever you bought it or on Goodreads or. But I really do think Goodreads is a great. It's a great place to interact in what we like in what we were talking about, like kind of a positive way, and like you can interact with readers and not insert yourself into play. You know, please don't respond to negative reviews. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do not respond to negative reviews. People have a right to their opinion. Don't do that. When I'm talking about reader and writer interaction, it's not that. It's not that part. But you know, you can encourage people and just let them know, hey, you know, negative or positive, whatever. Let people know what you think about my book. I would really appreciate it. You can still, there are still book review sites. There are still, I don't pay for reviews, and I don't use any, like I don't use any of the ARC, the advanced reader, like NetGalley. I'm trying to think of, like, there's a couple different like NetGalley and things to get ARC advanced copies out to reviewers. I don't use any of those, but I know that there are some of those kind of cooperatives available for indie publishers too. So I can't say how effective they are. But really, write a great book. Write a book that people are so excited about or so emotional about that they just have to tell somebody, even if that somebody is the Goodreads platform or the Amazon review. So write a book that moves people.
Perfect. Yeah, great advice there. Yeah. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's event. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is great information, and I hope everyone learned something today.
I hope it was helpful. Keep in mind that your journey is your journey and your voice is your voice, and no two writers have the exact same career. So
yep.
You get to choose your path.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining us today. And as always, happy publishing.